Hello and welcome along to the Day 2 preview of the Cheltenham Festival, brought to you by Coral. This episode of the Coral Cheltenham Formbook is brought to you by the Reward Shaker, with 100,000 free bets up for grab for every day of the Cheltenham Festival. It's free to play and daily. Coral are here to make this Cheltenham more rewarding. 18 plus UK online only, max one reward offer per player per day. 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. is the operation of the offer. Reward restrictions, requirement and T&Cs apply. Gambleaward.org. And please remember to gamble responsibly. Right, for day 2, more competitive actions to look ahead to. And I'm going to be joined again by Jake Price and Tom Stanley to look ahead to all the action. And we kick off with the Turners. First race of the day at 1:20. Just bring up the betting from Coral at the moment. Very tight at the top of the market between Mighty Park and No Drama This End, who are the 4-1 joint favs. Skylight Hustle at 5s. Dr. Steinberg, who probably looks like he's going for the Albert Bartlett at 6, along with Talk the Talk, who looks like going for the Supreme. Ballyfat at 7s and Active Innocence at 10s. So, welcome back again to Jake and Tom. We'll start with you this time, Jake. In the Turners, where would you be leaning towards?
Yeah, it's a really interesting race, isn't it? Because No Drama This End has been pretty much favourite since the Shallow. Obviously, he's done everything he can do in Britain. He's won his 3 races pretty much on the bridle on each occasion. A horse like that, though, I'm always willing to take on at a short price at the Cheltenham Festival when they haven't had a proper battle. And against all these Irish raiders that are now coming into the frame, you would say that he's going to have a battle for the first time in his career, pretty much. So that's something that I'd count against him. Mighty Park has been smashed off the boards with people assuming he's going to run here. Obviously, he's still got the Supreme option, so that's something to bear in mind. I'd say that if he does turn up here, he would obviously have a good chance, but he's almost the complete opposite profile, isn't he? He's absolutely bolted up in one maiden hurdle, and we've not seen him since. I think they did want to get another run into him. Obviously, they haven't been able to do so. So you're very much lacking the experience with him, but you know that he could be a very talented horse based on the fact that he's beaten Rock Dino of all horses as well, who's ended up in the handicaps like the Martin Pipe. So I'd say that the top end of the market is probably correct. As you mentioned, Dr. Steinberg is fairly short, but I'd say he's pretty much certainty to go to the Albert Bartlett, in my opinion. Talk the Talk, obviously, we've spoken about, is probably going to go to the Supreme. So the one that I thought was really interesting and that they've been speaking about going up in trip is Ballyfat for Gordon Elliott. I think that he has a lot in his favour here. He started his season over in bumpers, probably ground those bumpers out. He won at Down Royal and then followed up at Punchestown as well. But they decided to send him over hurdles over Christmas at Leopardstown, and he absolutely bolted up, beating Leader Dallier by 9.5 lengths. That was obviously a really good performance. Leader Dallier has come out, won against since, and is going for the Supreme by all accounts. So that looks like a really solid piece of form. And I think the thing that highlights Ballyfat as a bet to me more than anything else was his run in the Grade 1 at the DRF. Obviously, that was over 2 miles. He kind of took off out in front. Never made it a proper test or anything like that, but I just loved the way that every single time a horse came to him, every single time he needed an effort from Jack Kennedy, he was there for him. He was finding more every single time. You know, I'd say he probably lost the lead and retook the lead about 3 times in the final 2 furlongs. And the way that he battled back to beat King Rusco Grey obviously was travelling much better at the time. I really liked. He absolutely winged the second last one. He needed a good jump as well. And obviously he just got absolutely collared on the line by Talk the Talk. And it was tough if you bet him on the day. But I'd say that going up to the Turners is going to be exactly what he wants, considering he's a point-to-point winner. And Gordon Elliott is very much intimating that that's what he wants to do with him. So, yeah, Ballyfat would be the one for me.
Okay, Ballyfat at 7-1, I think, with Coral at the moment. What about yourself, Tom? Where do you stand?
Well, if you watched our first episode, you'll have heard that Jake and I were in lots of agreement, and the disastrous. Okay, how do I make this right? So I tell you what, we differ slightly on Mighty Park. So if Mighty Park runs in this race, I think she should be favourite, and I think he'll probably go and win it. The profile of this race compared to a Supreme, like weirdly, we know the Supreme can be won by a stronger stare sometimes than the Turners. and that can be because they just go a bit slower here, and it turns into a bit of a sprint. I guess what I'm getting at is I'm less concerned about experience and stamina for this distance, and I think just out and out class can just, like a 14, for example, or whatever, who came back and won a champion hurdle. You can go and win this. So I'm not worried about Mighty Park. I just don't know where he's going to run. I mean, he's shortest of the Mullins lot in the Supreme, so maybe that's where he's going to run. So I have to park him for this bit. No drama this end. I work with Ella McNeil, who Max's daughter. I love the McNeils. I would love Paul Nicholls to win this race. I would love this horse to win this race. But like these colours with Paul Nicholls, I just can't see it. I don't know why. And Nicholls has been stung in this race with Challow winners so many times before that I just don't think it's going to happen. And that's my sort of non-scientific approach to it. I just can't see it. I think something might be quicker than him, to be honest. I think is where I'm coming down on. We've seen it with your Denmans and your who was that lovely horse that won a King George and then was second in a Gold Cup? I think I've forgotten his name.
Brave Man's Game.
Brave Man's Game. But, you see it, and I think he's a staying chaser of the future, and I don't think it's right now for him. And that brings me to, I would love them to run Ballyfad up in distance. And I think everything Jake said about that horse and the run last time, like he did so well to conclusively beat King Rasco Grey, and then sort of had his pocket picked maybe by a quicker horse in Talk the Talk, who got his rider out of trouble. And Talk the Talk is probably maybe a slightly better horse, but I think definitely over the 2 miles. So I'd really like them to run Ballyfad up in distance. I think he's got an absolute shed load of ability, and it might just be that going over a little further really suits him. Not that he's slow and you need speed to win this race. And at the current prices, he would be the one that if they ran him, I would be most interested in. But I'm by no means negative about Mighty Park.
Both the lads keen on Ballyfad then. I'll go with the other one from the race then, if they run him here, King Rasco Grey, just because I feel like there might be a bit more to come from an improvement perspective. He lacked experience. He won well at Limerick, then pitched into a Grade 1. Maybe they'll go the Supreme route, but at 12-1 at the moment, non-runner, no bet. I just thought maybe King Rasco Grey, those two, Ballyfad and him, were maybe the two to focus on in this race. Jake, just a brief word on Active Innocence. What do you make of him? Off the Old Park star for Henderson in the Supreme. What about this guy in the Turners?
Yeah, well, there was a bit of a debate, wasn't there, when they both made their debuts as to which horse was better. And I think based on homework, they kind of thought Active Innocence would be the Supreme horse and Old Park Star would be the Turners horse. But that's been completely reversed, hasn't it, on their runs this season. I think what puts me off Active Innocence is that they didn't go to the Formby over Christmas. They decided to go to Newbury instead and then ended up getting beaten for good measure. But his last time out was much more like it at Huntington in the City Banks. He'll have his chance, but I think he's probably up against it to even beat the likes of a No Drama this end, let alone the Irish horses.
Okay, that's a look then at the Turners. Next up, I mean, quite a fascinating race from a betting perspective, let alone given Final Demand was odds on, about 4-6 to win the Brown Advisory before the Dublin Racing Festival. He's now narrowly favourite with Coral at 7-2. It's then 4-1 for Romeo Coolio and Kate Doty. The Big Westerner at 5s, 6-1 for Wendigo. Western Fold, who caught the art of the DRF at 7s. And then you've got 10-1, about 6 Mile Bridge, Grade 1 winner this season. Oscar's Brother, Cocktail Divan. And sorry, just slipping away slightly there, 8-1 as well for Kitzbühel. Tom, Final Demand first. How do you view him after the DRF flop?
He's just a much better price now. Like, it definitely was a flop. It was really, really disappointing. I'm not buying that he hadn't beaten much going into it, and he was found out. I just think he was way below par, and horses can be way below par. And he never, as the race developed, he never went through it with the zest that he'd gone through his races prior. He ran really well at the track last year, and I've got stuck in my head how well he was supported. He ended up finishing 3rd, but I thought he looked done for toe in a race that I think I've mentioned with the Turners that can be won by speedier horses, and that's him. Like, I think he's a stare. I think he wants 3 miles. And if you look at those behind him in the market, I don't think Romeo Coolio will run here. The big Westerner, she feels like a sort of, I don't know, she feels like weirdly hyped. But she's not for me. I know she ran very well at the meeting last year. I do think she wants some cut in the ground to be seen to her very best. So I think I'm just going to have to take it on trust that Mullins is going to peak Final Demand for this, and I have to forgive last time. I think he's the most likely winner. Obviously, you're not going to go and remortgage the house on him because he did flop last time, but he's suddenly looking like a pretty attractive price.
What about yourself, Jake?
Yeah, one of my theories is that this is going to be a horse who shortens a lot over the preview circuit. When everyone gets suck into the Cheltenham races, I think Final Demand is going to be one of these hype horses that's going to come right back in again. Perhaps not towards the price he was before, but a lot shorter than he is currently. I think you are taking obviously a lot on trust with that. I can completely see the angle, but I thought that Kate Doughty would be the one to take forward, and not saying that he's going to win or beat him as easily as he did at the DRF, obviously, because there was something wrong. But Kate Doughty has been a very slow, nice improver through the season, steadily improving run to run, whereas Final Demand kind of almost peaked on his first start for me in terms of how impressive he looked. So, yeah, Kate Doughty obviously was beaten by Kitzbühel. I actually quite like Kitzbühel as a horse. He went to Kempton over Christmas, but I think the problem I have with him is winning it at Kempton. That race has such an awful record in the Brown Advisory, and I think it's because, purely because Kempton's such an opposite track to Cheltenham, isn't it? It's right-handed flat, whereas Cheltenham's left-handed undulating, and it's just a completely different test. I think Kitzbühel's got plenty of speed over the trip, whereas I think Kate Doughty's more stamina, and he showed that the next day when going up to 2.6 and beating Wingman by 10 lengths. So as much as Wingman's a very, lowly horse compared to these lot, I think it was a good performance. And then obviously at the DRF, he put everything together and showed how good he is. He's a notably big horse, so the fact that he's improving nice over fences, I think stands him in good stead. And he's the type of horse I think could be going for Grand Nationals and that type of race in the future. I'm not sure if there's a proper Gold Cup horse in here other than Final Demand, and he's got a lot to prove for me. So yeah, Kate Doughty, I think, is the one that I'd take on trust that he's been there, done that, and we know that he's on a steady upwards incline.
Okay, I'm with Kate Doughty as well, but I think at an each way price, I really like Western Fold. I thought caught the eye behind Kate Doughty last time out. I think he'll be suited by a slightly sounder surface if we do indeed get that. Don't forget, he was only 5 lengths behind Envoy Len in the feature race at Down Royal, which had Affidel Fury in second, who went and won the Savills next time out. I just think he's got a decent level of form. He's coming into this relatively fresh, so he'd maybe be my dart in that. So we've all got different selections. Woo! Final Demand for Tom, Kate Doughty for Jake, and I'll take Western Fold. Brief word, Tom, on the British. I mean, Wendigo looks the best of them, but do you think this is an Irish race of domination, sort of a bit like last year?
Yeah. I don't know how big a field we'll have either. Yeah, I do. There's no British horses bang at the top of my list anyway. I think it'll the winner will emerge from Kate Doughty and Final Demand. And yeah, the strongest staying chasers at the moment seem to be over in Ireland. I'm just looking. Yeah, I mean, Wade Out's going to go over further, isn't he? Kitzbühel's a funny. Sorry, just to come back to Kitzbühel. It was really disappointing at Sandown. That's twice he's not looked a natural jumper at 2.5. He'll fare better over 3, definitely. But he did look a natural spinning round Kempton. So yeah, I have to see what lines up. But Wendigo wouldn't be for me now.
Okay, let's look then at the Brown Advisory. Next Grade 1 on the card will be the feature, which is, of course, the Champion Chase. And as I mentioned, and I've from our sponsors, Coral, they are celebrating 100 years. And with that in mind, going to ask the guys again for their favourite memory of the feature race of the day, which is the Champion Chase. Jake, what springs to mind for you?
Yeah, mine's going to be Altior's first win in 2018. This was just an absolutely monstrous performance because Min was in there in second and he made Min look slow coming up that hill. I think it probably would have been the second Champion Chase I was there for. Special Tiara was my first harrowing memories. But Altior winning this was a fantastic performance. I think he almost goes down as a horse who was kind of underrated and underappreciated at the time when he was running. But now looking back on him, he had such an impeccable record. He was such a talented horse. And, I think Min was a great horse as well. And he's put him to bed by 7 lengths here. So, yeah, that would be the memory for me.
What about yourself, Tom?
Sire de Grugy, purely because of the family story that it came with the Moors. Like, the jockeys came out of the weighing room. It was just brilliant. It was like, obviously you can't refer to Gary Moore as like, it's not a David versus Goliath story at all, but it was still a bit of that. And it felt like until he did it Sire de Grugy, it was never accepted by people that he could go and do it, even with what he'd achieved throughout that season. And he was the best 2-mile chaser around then. He was fabulous. And just the reaction when Gary and Jamie won it, I thought there was a real outpouring of affection towards him and the Moors and the family and the owners as well, who were great people. So he was one of my favourite winners ever at the Champion Chase.
Mine's Sprinter Sacre in 2016, not for the story, but in my old life when I used to work for a company called Race News, who used to do the quotes at Cheltenham. I was doing the places. And when he came back in, I was talking to Noel Feely or Paddy Brennan. And I have never heard a noise like it since or before when he came back into the winners' enclosure. It was literally like being in a coliseum. Gone to some great sporting events in my life, but I will never forget. We were talking, me and Paddy Brennan, I think, about how the horse had run. And we both stopped, looked at each other and just said, God, that was pretty incredible, wasn't it? Just the reception he got. So I've never forgotten that, let alone the story of what Hendo did to get him back, but just more what it sort of brought to the day in general.
I hated every bit of him winning the Champion Chase.
Why, Tom?
Hated it. So the year before, I'd had an anti-post bet in the November, 4 Mullins horses and Sprinter Sacre, and it paid more money than I would have ever won on a bet. And it was back when you could get early prices about Mullins horses, in the November. They had like 14, like 4s, I think, for a Champion Hurdle. You had Undersow, I think, for the Arkle, one other, and Vautour in the JLT. Anyway, and I threw in Sprinter Sacre. The 4 Mullins horses won. Sprinter Sacre didn't win, and I didn't win any money. And then the next year, Sprinter Sacre came back and did win it. And I was just a year too early. And I was stood there. Everyone was going absolutely bisbo, cheering him on. And I was like, nah, not for me. Hated it.
That is a bad beat.
Great story, though. But yeah, anyway, go on.
What about the the pleasure. 5-4 favourites Madgeborough after his DRF demolition job. Marine Nationale, the defending champ, at 2s. Ilite Tomp at 6. Loda Sud, haven't seen him for a bit. He's 7s. Quilixios, similar comments apply at 12s with John Bon. 16s for Thistle Ask at the moment I can see, and 25-1 for Founder 50. Bigger prices the remainder. Surely, lads, this is Madgeborough's to lose, Jake. He's the new messiah after the DRF win.
I agree with you, yeah. I think it's his to lose. The thing with Marine Nationale that I always have the problem with is you're just taking it completely on trust that the Cheltenham Festival is where he's going to peak. And obviously he's proven that in the past to be correct. But what Madgeborough's done this season, I think, is a very different level in terms of the fact that his first 2 starts were very shaky. He went to Court, got beat, went to Left Stand of Christmas, got beat. And the questions were starting to be asked, how good is this horse? Does he need to go up in trip? What does he need to do to be able to win a race? And then to go to the DRF, and put in that performance. But in the first time cheek pieces, he seemed to concentrate a lot more. He visually jumped a lot better. I know the data suggests that he's always jumped pretty well, but visually he jumped a lot better in these cheek pieces. And given an aggressive ride by Mark Walsh, he's absolutely destroyed Marine Nationale. And okay, the ground probably wasn't for that horse and the ground was in Madgeborough's favour. But I think if the ground is soft or has softened the description at Cheltenham, he's going to take such a beating because he clearly fries in these conditions.
What about yourself, Tom? How do you sort of come down on this?
I think rather boringly, the market has it that I can't have a very strong opinion either way. If somebody was to tell me they couldn't back Majborough on account of last year, where he was only beaten 3/4 of a length, like he nearly won. But I would understand it because he has that in his locker to throw in a stinker. And this race has it in horses' lockers to throw in a stinker. Like, look at Douvan a few years ago. Look at John Bon last year. And look at recent winners of this race. It's a top-level race. And you go to 11-1 Special Tiara and put the kettle on at 17-2. Captain Guinness at 17-2. Even Marine Nationale was something of a surprise last year because John Bon was just meant to go and win it going off at 5-6. Sorry, not even 5-6. I think was shorter than that. So, but Majborough is an outstanding individual, and when he does put it all together, then he's unstoppable. So I can understand people will say, I want to back Marine Nationale because he's solid, but then you are banking on Majborough making an error. So it's whichever way you want to play those two. It's bad on a betting preview to say it's just not a betting race for me at the moment, but it's kind of not. I will take a review of the ground. I think Majborough is slightly better jumping out of easier ground. But right now, I can't find anything at a price to back. And I'd be happily telling people that as long as Majborough doesn't throw in a dodgy one, I think he'll go and win easily. I just couldn't back him at these current prices.
That was going to be my next question, Tom. You sort of say nothing else. The Tingle Creek form, was you just ignore? You just don't think those two are good enough, Lodesud and Ilite Tomp?
No, I don't think Lodesud's good enough. Nowhere near. I think Ilite Tomp is probably good enough, but I don't think he's as good as Majborough. So I'm just going to be taking a price about Majborough throwing it like I'm going to be. It's do I think Majborough will put in a clear round of jumping, and I think he's priced up rightly at the moment. There's not really much wiggle room in there. I'm slightly with Ilite Tomp thinking that, last time was, I think he's better than that. But he looked very good at Sandown 2 times, and he's disappointed here a couple of times. So that's also at the back of my mind with him. And again, there's just price wise, I think he's about right too. Sorry, it's a bit dull.
What about Jake, the horse we haven't seen since he ran in the race last year and fell at the third out, was it, or the second last? Quilixios. What do you make of his chances if he's coming here fresh?
Yeah, it's hard to put a gauge on him, isn't it? Considering we haven't seen him since, and coming here first time up, I don't have the stats to hand, but I can't imagine it's a very positive record. Ilite Tomp is the one who would interest me at the prices. I think that he is a horse. I don't know if it's just me who's got this in my head, but I think he wants a bit of spring ground, a bit of ground that he's able to jump out of a bit better. The ground at Ascot looked to me like he just couldn't quite jump out of it as well as he can on this spring ground, as we've seen at Sandown, at the end of this last season. So if they can get him back, obviously it'll take something to get him back due to the bad fall he had at Ascot. But if we have spring ground and Marine Nationale is all the rage, Ilite Tomp might come into it himself.
Okay,
what do we case? Yeah, is Thistleast going to run in this or not?
I don't think so, no. He's not been scratched or anything, but it's sounding like they're going to wait to Sandown for him, which is unfortunate because he would have such a good chance, wouldn't he, in terms of just being able to go from the front and put pressure on horses around the old course. But
I think that's exactly it, right? It's his style which could just throw a spanner in the works for a horse like Majborough. I think it's with Majborough's jumping frailties, it's a race which on the day I want to look at the field, work out exactly where the pace is going to come from, what the ground is going to be, and ask myself, do I think Majborough has got at the prices that sort of chance of putting in a good round of jumping? And that's what I'll base my decision on, but I'm not there yet.
Okay, that's a look then at the Champion Chase. Right, the final Grade 1 on the card, pretty impossible, I would say, at this stage to have a really strong fancy. Maybe the lads will prove me wrong, but is the Champion Bumper. Your favourite at 5-1 is Love Sign Danu. 10-1 for Keep Him Company and Quirin. 12s with Coral for Oh My Word, Bentra Hill and the Irish Avatar. 14s for R Trigger, 16-1 Base Hunter. I'm happy to start here, though, because Love Sign Danu has got absolutely no chance of winning this race. I've never been... I can't believe it went... I was working that day. It's one of the worst bumpers I've ever seen. They were strung out like I've got the washing out at the moment. Yes, he won in a Kansas. It was on terrible ground. 24 lengths. I think he's only there because he's in those Richie Silks, and he's one I will be desperate to be taking on. Anyone else?
No, I don't have as exciting or good an opinion as that. Absolutely not. The Champion Bumper is a race I will look at the night before. Yeah. Sorry, right now, no. The only thing I would say is that I have changed my opinion on how to approach the race, and it used to be 10 years ago I was reveling in putting up the Mullins Outsiders or the Mullins, third jockey booking, but it's changed a bit since then. So it feels like he's got more of a gauge on the good ones, but otherwise, no, not right now.
I remember when he won it, was it Briar Hill with Ruby, and he was like 25s or something like that. What about yourself, Jake?
Yeah, I love how you say you can't have a strong opinion on the Champion Bumper, but you can have a really strong opinion that the favourite won't win.
Just on a horse. Just that horse. I've got something about he's on my list.
No, I was much more impressed clearly than you with Love Sign Danu. I thought that he is a proper grinder, obviously, but a proper grinder that can win a Champion Bumper. I'd say obviously he needs a bit of soft ground to be at his best, but he would be the type that I'd be interested in looking at a race like this. Keep him company for Gordon Elliott seems to be their number one. I know Gordon seems to be quite keen on him. You'd have to say he's more of a grinder as well. He really battled and knuckled down at Leopardstown the last day when getting up inside the final furlong or so. So again, another one who's going to be finishing fast, you'd say. It's very interesting that Willie Mullins has got 2 4-year-olds. Obviously, Patrick Mullins will get the choice of what he wants to ride, but he won't be able to choose the 4-year-olds because he can't do the weight. So whether or not they are thought of better at home is kind of irrelevant in that scenario. I'd imagine Love Sign Danu will be where he ends up. But yeah, Quirin and our Trigger, they definitely would have their chances based on the fact that they're not the usual 4-year-olds that come to this race. Obviously, no 4-year-olds won it since Q Card way back when. But these two, one's Quirin's come from the flat, and our Trigger was broken in early apparently, and obviously is a full relation to Gaelic Warrior. So yeah, plenty of interesting types, but it's hard to have a strong opinion at this stage, that's for sure.
Okay, I think Bentra Hill could be one of the Mullins who caught the Ijodi Town and rode that one to victory at Leopardstown over the Christmas period. Didn't run a DRF, but might be one at this stage. Right, that's a look from the grade ones. Let's have a brief look then at some of the handicaps. First off, a bit like Prince, the artist formerly known as the Coral Cup, because we don't know what this race is now called. Thanks again to our sponsors, Coral. 10-1 favourite is I Started a Joke. 12-1 Indiva Blue and Storm Heart, along with Apaya Denom. 14s for Iberico Lord, the Passing Wife. Nurse Susan Came From Nowhere. And the Yellow Clay, interestingly, at 16-1. Look, impossible at this stage, really, to have a strong fancy, I imagine, chaps. But anything at the moment that caught your eye in the betting, Tom?
Ballyadam. Always in the Coral Cup. Second in 24, third last year, and is probably going to be rated similarly. So, yeah, what price is he? He'd be a price, definitely one I want on side. It's not a race that I don't mind having a sort of hardy sort for this, as opposed to an up and coming novice. I do think Iberico Lord will be very well found in the market off the back of that Kempton success. Completely unexposed at the distance. Nicky's got a decent recent record in it, and he looks an ideal profile for the race. So if he lines up and he's still a half interesting price, I'll back him. But I can tell you now, I will be backing Ballyadam.
25-1 with Coral Ballyadam. I'm going to have a little stab on the Yellow Clay. Only 12 months ago, he's second to the New Lion. Back over this sort of trip. Hopefully gets decent enough ground. Well beaten at Leopardstown last time out. But surely he's better than... Well, let's see what mark is given by the British handicapper. But I don't know, 12-1, I'll take a chance each way. Jake?
I think this is probably the hardest handicap of the whole week, to be honest, and it's one that I always have a stronger opinion, closer to the time than this far out. Came from nowhere as a horse that I absolutely love. I've loved following him this season. He's done really well. You'd probably want some soft ground for him to be at his absolute best. So that might be something you have to wait on. I know he's not going to run here, but the Passing Wife is another horse I'll just touch on. I think he's a very well handicapped horse. I think he's going to be improving massively for intermediate trips. Obviously, the last day he hacked up beating Dr. Dumanil, who hasn't lived up to expectations, but he still won that on the bridle. I'd say the Martin Pike will probably be the first port of call for him should he get a good weight. But yeah, it's just a horse to have on your radar for Cheltenham, that's for sure.
Okay, that's a look then at that race. Tom will be busy working, getting post-race interviews after this race. Jake, will you be heading to the Guinness Village for the cross country, or are you a fan of watching the race? What's your opinion from that point of view on the cross country? Is it a race you have a bet in?
Potentially. I want to see what Mark Stumptown gets. I think that's going to be crucial here. There's only 23 entries and there's a £20 ratings band between top and bottom weight. But with the new BHA rule being you can't be more than £15 at the handicap, it means you basically have to be within £35 of Stumptown's rating. So if he's given something like 162 or something like that, you have to be 127 to get into the race, and that's going to cause some issues for some of the horses down the bottom. Your usual regulars, and at that stage it becomes more of a conditions race, and perhaps a Favre de Champdou getting some weight would be the way that you play it. But yeah, at this stage it's very hard to know.
Would you be with at the two at the top of the market, Stumptown or Favre de Champdou? I mean, we haven't seen Stumptown, but Favre de Champdou was very good over this course last time out.
Yeah, I was very impressed with his performance on Trials Day, and yeah, he would be the one that I would side with getting a bit of weight. To be honest, I think he was given 157. I think it was in the national, if I remember correctly. But yeah. Getting some weight, I'd say that he would be the one for me, but it's not a strong opinion.
Tom, are you a man who usually has a bet in this race or leaves it alone?
I'm interested what Stumptown gets. I think that's the key, right? It's a handicap. He was very good last year. Also, Vanillier, who ran very well despite the circumstances, I thought last year is of interest, but it's not a race I'm going to have a bet in at the moment. I did want to come back to the Coral Cup and just say Jinko Blue. I wanted to mention him because I thought the horse ran with credit back over hurdles again last time, and I think this is his distance. It's the only handicap he's entered in, so I did want to throw him in there as well because I think the Caballo de Mathan form is very strong, and that horse at the weights was a pretty good thing on the day, so I thought he was interesting. More interested in that than the cross country. But I think it's a race to go out and watch the cross country. It's a great race to go and watch. It's a load of fun. It's a bit of a maze, and I'd encourage you to get out there and watch it.
Final race then to look at is the Grand Annual. Just a brief look at the betting for this. Jacob's Ladder is rates 1 favourite. Van der Poel and Be Aware at 9s. 10s for David's Well and Jazzy Matty. 12-1 for Ryan's Rocket. 16 to Release the Beast and Ballysack's Hank. Bigger prices about the remainder. Also, Coral are going a bigger price at the moment about No Questions Asked, who's generally a 16 and 14 to 1 chance, but it's 10 to 1 with Coral. So they might know something that I don't. But I'd be very, very, very sweet on Jacob's Ladder here. I was very, very impressed with the performance at the DRF last time out, having chased home Kapajai Pike in a grade 3. Obviously, he's now rated 151 in Ireland, so see what he gets here. But I think he's a very, very smart horse. And if he can get into this handicap, I think he could be that classic comment, a graded horse masquerading in a handicap. And I know that Tom said about Ballyadam earlier on. I'll go for another old stager who's running the race before, Liberty Hunter. He probably needs it a bit heavy. I thought he ran well enough behind Lulamba last time out, but he's been dicing himself around in grade 2s and grade 1s recently. I don't know whether they'll just be tempted. He's currently off a mark of 151. If he can get into this, maybe they'll go back down the Grand Annual route because I think he's a classy operator. And if they could get Cobden back aboard, he might be of interest for me. Anything for you, Tom?
Well, my horse to follow this year for Racing TV was Van der Poel, who's done pretty well so far, although they campaign the horse sort of smartly with a view to handicaps, I think, in running him against lump sum and on first start and getting beaten, and then I thought the trip was wrong at Lingfield, and then 2 from 2 since, winning at 5-1 and 9-4. The problem about Van der Poel for this race is he's been winning races, and this can be a race where you want to find something that's had a fairly crap season, to be completely honest, and that's proved very disappointing so far this season, and has come down the weights. So yeah, I probably won't back Van der Poel, to be honest. I don't know what to do about In the Pocket. I'll probably end up throwing a few quid after him again and regretting it. But we know we know he's got ability. He's just, he's so far behind Jacob's Ladder last time. So that was very disappointing. And yeah, I'll find a UK trained horse that's definitely lining up in the race on the day, that's not done a huge amount so far this year, would be my angle into it. But I want to wait until I know what's definitely lining up before I find that. But something that's been a bit disappointing, like a Pauling horse, but not a Van der Poel profile, something that's been a bit rubbish so far this year.
In the Pocket 16-1 at the moment. What about yourself, Jake?
No, this is really tough. I don't have a strong opinion right now. Few horses on the radar. The likes of Release the Beast, who's been saved for this race. He's been specifically held back since Christmas. Was just behind Adrigul that day. Probably should have actually got a lot closer, if not won the race. He now comes here fresh, having not run at the DRF, where Adrigul ran a good race in third. So perhaps he's won, but yeah, this is a very tricky race. So I'll be waiting until closest to the time.
Okay, then that's a look at all the action on day 2. All that's left then is to get the guys naps. And remember, it's time for the 100-second Coral Cheltenham briefing, because Coral is celebrating 100 years and giving away 100,000 free bets every day of the Cheltenham Festival. So once again, they did it easily last time. They've got 100 seconds again to tell us why their pick wins. Tom, let's come to you first then for your nap on day 2.
I'm going to keep it simple with the very best horse in the 2 o'clock, the Brown Advisory. That's Final Demand. He was too bad to be true last time. I think he's much better than that. I'm not really buying it that he hadn't beaten a good horse over fences and found one last time, because he was third. So I'm sure he didn't find 2. Marlins will get him to peak for this. I think he definitely wants to go over 3 miles. He looked that way when he ran third at the festival last year behind the Yellow Clay and the New Lion. And I think he's going to prove that he's comfortably the best horse in a race which doesn't have a huge amount of depth to it. So Final Demand to win the Brown Advisory, and I think he'll shorten up a good bit between now and the race. Okay,
what about yourself, Jake?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the Turners, the opening race, where I think Ballyfad has an outstanding chance here. Point-to-point winner, expensive purchase for Gordon Elliott and Jigginstown House Stud. Won his 2 bumpers, first at Down Royal, then Punchestown in November. There was only 21 days between the 2 of them, and he properly ground out both successes, but went over hurdles over Christmas on Boxing Day at Leopardstown and absolutely bolted up, beating Leader Dahlia, who's obviously won since and has boosted that form no end. Seems like he's going to turn up in the Supreme. So he's beaten a very good horse very easily. And then he's gone to Leopardstown in the Grade 1 over 2 miles, where he's just ground out a very good second place. He jumps out to his right a tiny bit, but I don't think it's anything too much to worry about. He's happy to go from the front. I'm sure he'd be happy to take a lead if something was keen to go on. And the way that he pinged that second last when Jack asked him up for a nice jump where he needed it, the way that he's battled back past King Rasco Grey, despite that horse travelling all over him, I think going up in trip to 2.5 miles at Cheltenham is going to be exactly what he wants. It's what Gordon Elliott wants to do with him, and that's good enough for me. So yeah, Ballyfad is the bet for me.
God, that was nearly 100 seconds. Love it. And finally, I'm going to go with Madgeborough. He put it all together last time out at the DRF. I think the cheap pieces have just helped iron out his idiosyncrasies. Obviously, he made that bad mistake in the Arkle last year, but still nearly managed to win the race. I think he's coming along nicely with his jumping. This looks a weakish enough champion chase, you'd have to say. Elite Tomp and Marine Nationale, probably the 2 he's got to worry about. But I think he's going from strength to strength. And hopefully he can be part of a double with Jacob's Ladder, who can hopefully go and win the Grand Annual later on the card. I think there's a lot more to come from him as well. And don't forget, Love Sign Danu has absolutely no chance. Bumper. Right, let's finish by talking to Jake because Tom kindly is going to come back for day 3 and 4. Hopefully going to be joined by Steve Mellish and Coral's David Stevens. But Jake will be leaving us. So what we're going to talk to you, Jake, about a couple of selections for the final 2 days. So first off, just the big jewels and who's going to win these, just one-word answers. Bambino Fever versus Old School Outlaw.
Bambino Fever.
Lossy, well, you don't think she's going to run here, but if she did in the mares, Lossiemouth or Woodhoo?
Oh, I love Woodhoo, but Lossiemouth would win that.
Stayers, Tiupu versus Honesty Policy versus Bob Ollinger.
I'm quite keen on Honesty Policy. I think he's got a good chance.
And Dino Blue versus Spindleberry.
Probably Dino Blue.
And finally, Jake, as remember, it's the free-to-play reward shake, £100,000 free bets up for grabs for every day of the festival. Cheltenham's going to be more rewarding. You've shaken your phone. You've got your free bet on the Friday. Who wins Jump Racing's Blue Ribbon event, the Cheltenham Gold Cup?
I mean, it's another one where I hope he runs, but I really, really would fancy Gaelic Warrior if he turned up here. I know there's a lot of talk about would he go for a Ryanair? Will Factor File come here? It's all a bit up in the air at the moment, but Gaelic Warrior, for me, has the best profile of the two for a Gold Cup. Obviously, when he won at Aintree the end of last season, I thought it was a very smart performance when he beat Grey Dawning quite easily in a race where it kind of looked like it was Grey Dawning's to lose. He's gone to Punchestown at the beginning of the season, gone from the front in the John Durkin and managed to see off Factor File. The King George turned into an absolute sprint, so I can see how you could fancy any number of those horses to go and run well in the Gold Cup and produce a better showing in the Gold Cup as well. The likes of a Django By, the likes of a Jukebox Man. I think there's plenty of positives you can take from all of them, but Gaelic Warrior would be the one that I would take the most positives from, and his run in the Irish Gold Cup to still finish second despite being so keen in the early stages under Patrick Mullins, I think was a very good effort. And obviously you'd want Paul Townend to be on to have maximum confidence. It seems like he's probably going to lean towards Galopin de Champs one last time, but if you had a Paul Townend on in a Gold Cup, I'd say he'd be favourite.
So, Gaelic Warrior to win the Cheltenham Gold Cup for Jake. Thanks very much to Tom. Thanks very much to Jake. As I said, Tom hope to be back later on in the week for day 3 and day 4 alongside Steve Mellish and David Stevens. So all that's left for me to do is remember with Coral's free-to-play reward shaker, there are 100,000 free bets up for grabs every day of the Cheltenham Festival. That's Cheltenham more rewarding. 18 plus UK online only, max 1 reward offer per player per day. 8 AM till 8 PM is the operation of the offer. Reward restrictions, requirement and T&Cs apply. Gambleaware.org. Remember, you can watch every race from the Cheltenham Festival live on Racing TV. Join Tom, Nick Luck, Lydia Hislop and all the team every day to enjoy all the action. And you can keep across it on our social media channels as well. Of course, a busy time of year. Thanks again to Jake and to Tom. And thanks to you to watching at home. And please remember to gamble responsibly.